Hello and welcome back to another week of the DP World Tour Picks and Bets. Skylar Hoke here, joined as always with my friend Tom Jacobs. The golf world had quite the weekend. Tom, how are you doing this Monday morning?
Yeah, I'm good. I must admit I didn't really have too much skin in the bone yesterday. Obviously, it was great to see Nick Dunlap win at the Amex. Obviously, the biggest story of the weekend. First amateur since 1991, I believe it was, when Mickelson won as an amateur. So one big drop for Phil again, I guess. But yeah, I mean, that was an amazing story in itself and probably dominates the headlines, right? But Rory McIlroy winning a fourth Dubai Desert Classic is huge, and perhaps the way in which he won it was potentially more important. The fact that he was 11 shots behind going into the weekend, and you can argue whether that's his brilliance or Cam Young's struggles, whichever way you want to look at it, and we can discuss that a little bit. But yeah, I think it's an interesting one. Obviously, I had Houghton Lee in the mix, and there was one point he hit a good approach on a par 3 on the back 9, I think maybe 12 or 13, where I dared to dream just slightly. He missed the putt and then went on to reel off 3 bogeys in a row and kind of break my heart there. But yeah, it was otherwise a pretty uneventful week for my picks. It was just hoping that Houghton would hold on to a place, which he did.
Yep, 100%. That's 2 weeks in a row. You opening up with a long shot, hitting the board. So good work on your end. I had immediate, and no surprise by the result, but immediate Houghton Lee FOMO in the sense that I've been trying to get better and not, just jumping off of a little bit of form or because if I do that, these type of things, I know how I can get with some of my angles and betting. The fact that Nick Dunlap wins means I'm probably never going to let an amateur not be on my betting card ever again. Every week, every single one of them. Thor Bjornsson off the injury finishes T11. But Houghton was a tailor-made bet that you and I would make on this show, and I mean, there's a reason for us to go back again this week, and we'll talk on that. But had good result from him. That was fun. Rory, absolutely, in the manner that he did. Cam Young, or should we say Scam Young, does what he does on the weekends at times. Neiman hit the board for me, short odds. Where you get 5-1 back on his 25 on the each way. So good result for him. Steady climbing. Hope to keep seeing him in DP World Tour events. But yeah, I mean, more on Dunlap, man. I mean, that is, I kind of tweeted about it late last night because I was a little behind watching, but you and I have had the long discussion of until you see these guys who are dominant at their current level get a fair amount of shots against the best or the elites. I always think there's reason to, if you believe in the talent, to take advantage. I mean, from a better, I'm just talking about from pure speculation standpoint.
Yeah.
You're not going to get those chances all that much, no different than every start of the season when we get these Challenge Tour guys or, some of the long shots that I want to talk about today who might not even be betting, but who have a great pedigree on their current levels. And then they come up and am I surprised on that point? Of course, but in reality, I think you and I have been on board banging the drums that these things can happen and will happen and probably are going to happen even more often with the talent that we see in the game of golf at such young ages now. I mean, too cool for him to be the one who just held steady at the end and not be the one left and right and in the water. And, I mean, just as good, pure, emotionless almost golf that he could play to keep himself in the mix and ultimately wind up on top was as cool as the thing that I've seen in golf in quite some time. Loved it for him.
Yeah, it was great. It was great that he buried that putt on the last. I'd hate for him to have had to go on to the playoff and had to then beat Bezuidenhout in that way. Great playing by Bezuidenhout, by the way. I know I give him a lot of stick, and actually last week I said on all the podcasts I did that actually last week it was the one time that Bezuidenhout actually looked like good value, and it turned out that way. But yeah, I think with Dunlap, it's one of those ones where people are just. There's some people that overreact and they think, oh, he's going to go and contend in majors straight away and it's a foregone conclusion he's going to win 10 times in the PGA Tour. And then there's the people that say, oh, it's never going to happen again and it's all just too early. And then there's somewhere in the middle that's probably true, right? And I think that I sort of read about people were talking about who would you rather pick out of Aberg and Dunlap for a major so far. And everyone was sort of saying, oh, people can't win majors straight away. I mean, like Jordan Spieth and Jonas Blixt were like in contention at the Masters on their first ever appearance, right? I know that Jordan Spieth is who Jordan Spieth is, but Jonas Blixt isn't. And Nick Dunlap is supposedly the superior talent to someone like a Jonas Blixt. Like, it wouldn't be all that surprising if he somehow went on and competed in a major, right? So I do think it pays a lot to pay attention to these people. He's back in the field again this week in Torrey Pines. He's gone from 400 to 1 down to 150, 100 to 1. I'm sure the number will keep sort of getting skinnier as people kind of get excited about betting him. But to your point, like, I think it's, as much as we talk about Challenge Tour players and Mini Tour players coming onto the DP World Tour and spot starts in this show, it's all relative, right? Like, okay, we're maybe not talking about the talent level of Nick Dunlap when we talk about these players, but they don't need to be to win these tournaments. So it's all relative and it's all important to kind of focus on. We saw last week in, when you've got Rory and Fleetwood and Neiman and Cam Young, all those people in the field, it's certainly tough. But when you get back to kind of a field like this with Ras Al Khaimah, certainly you can look out for some of these players again.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's just, and the way he did it, like, he has gotten PGA Tour spot starts, miscut, win type of thing. Like, those kids have that. I mean, that's exactly what Wolf did. I'm pretty sure Wolf hadn't made a cut, and then when Wolf won in Minnesota, I just think that's another thing where kids are almost fearless, and they simply, no matter some of the form on the big stages, have that ability to step right in and compete and win. I mean, they win at their levels. If it's somebody who wins on the Alps Tour and gets the spots, in the Challenge and the DP, like, we have seen that continue. So I think we can transition. Are you good to go into this week? Anything else to close out this past week?
No, I think just one word on kind of the Neiman and the Hautong picks, right? Like, look, they weren't going to win. I don't think they were going to win. Like, Cam Young had to come back to the field an awful lot to even put us in contention, and then Rory was pretty much looking like he was going to win once he hit the front. But both of those players finished there, and that was potentially the worst they could have finished. Like, Neiman, I think, parred the last hole, despite being long in 2 on the par 5. Hautong obviously finishing with 3 bogeys and a par finish on the 17th suggests that he could have been much more comfortable in the top 5. So, and with Hautong in particular, which will be relevant later on, he didn't have it completely. Like, he wasn't completely back. He was losing a lot of balls off the tee, and he was either hitting provisional or he was kind of just in bad positions, right? So his driving off the tee was not great. Despite that, he still had good approach numbers and tee screen numbers overall, and he was hitting some miraculous approach numbers, approaches from those weird areas. So the talent level is there. The belief is obviously back to a certain amount, and he's going to have an easier time of it this week. So I think it's a good time to go into the Ras.
Yeah, agreed. So we are going, like Tom said, to Ras Al Khaimah. We have seen this event 3 times on the DP World Tour. 1 time last year where Daniel Gavins won in double bogey fashion on the 18th. Quite his close last year. We went in the water twice and then buried a 30-footer to win. Coming back, Tom, that has to be, he's 1,000 to 1 this week. That might be the longest odds anybody has as a return champion, I feel like, for that.
Yeah.
We've seen Gavin. It's crazy.
It doesn't happen often, right? Like, I think you always look at those. You see those bets sometimes that people put up where they look at the defending champions for.
Yeah.
It's not in the PGA Tour, right? That people bet them and they get these. They're excited when they get like 12 to 1 or 33 to 1 or 50 to 1. Get 1,000 to 1 about the guy that won it literally 12 months ago. Look, it's deserved. I think he's basically missed every cut or withdrawn ever since then. But it made me think and pause about this tournament and whether we can find a player that just had a little bit about his game, a little bit like what Hautong Lee did, in the sense he just showed a little bit and then performed. Like Gavin's, I believe, finished like 38th, I think, the week before in a Dubai Desert Classic before winning here. Nothing too, strenuous, but I think he hit the ball pretty well. And, look, I'm not going to bet him, but one of the names that came up that was like 8th in approach and is probably a bigger number is Sebastian Garcia. And people like there's going to be someone like that that's going to go and just hit the ball long and make a bunch of birdies on an easy golf course and bounce back from a bunch of form that was really poor. So I do think if you have a player that has shown life in recent months, maybe hit the ball well last week but didn't score very well, it's pretty worth taking a punt on them.
Yeah, the two previous winners were Nikolai Højgaard and Ryan Fox. Right, it was Nikolai, right? Yes. When they played back-to-back weeks in 2022 at this course. And those leaderboards were very driver-heavy. We've just seen, Emirates Golf Club that we talked about last week, we mentioned it, and we previewed this week. I was looking specifically, and my card resembles those that drive it long and showed some life and have a decent number, and that's basically where I landed to build this out. And there's a few others that I think are interesting. Overall, if I look, now we also have a huge step down in pedigree, I guess, in the field. If we look at leaders on the odds boards, Rasmus Højgaard, Jordan Smith, Thorbjørn Olesen, Yannick Paul, all Thriston Lawrence are all, I guess, the top 5 that separate themselves on the board. I am totally okay passing on any of them personally. I didn't even really give a hesitation to any of the guys here. Did you?
Look, I'm always going to look at Højgaard and Olesen based on the comments that I've made on them, but the way that Olesen played last week, over the final couple of rounds was disappointing. And Rasmus, I like just waiting for him to be 33s one in deeper fields, right? There'll be some interest in Xander Lombard this week, at similar sort of prices at the top. But for me, no, I wasn't gonna go there. I think the one that I thought you might have picked up on in the kind of 33 to 40 to 1 range was Keita Nakajima. I was kind of expecting you to put him on there based on pedigree, but that was probably as low as I expected you to go.
Yeah, he was. I mean, if you talk about, again, shots on, a perfect example, right? I mean, we haven't really seen him priced all that much in the DP World Tour, if at all, right? So getting him in this discovery range, I think I've seen him on a few cards this morning from people I respect. I think it's very valuable and worthy of a putt. Maybe the game might not fit exactly here. It's not. I don't really think it's a style of golf that he has pretty much played prior to coming over here either, So that's kind of where I'm okay passing. Xander Lombard, I was very interested in back again. Thought he played okay. Sunday didn't really go. I guess some of the days didn't go his way, but popped to the leaderboard a little bit. But ultimately, we land on the same guy, Tom, to start our cards, right? And we made the strong case of why Houghton Lee was important to bet last week, why even at a third of the odds this week, I think he makes just as much sense. Game is built around right now the driving. However, you can see that approach. I guess the distance, it's kind of been around. He's always been wayward, but the approach game, spectacular. To your point, numbers were really strong last week overall. Scores in bunches. Has had success here. Third place finish in the past. It's really just making the same argument with another week of sample size, and at a course he feels comfortable again in a weaker field.
It's just the attitude that he showed. Like he was obviously getting worked up, and the commentary were kind of talking about, he shouldn't be so stressed. He's so highly strung. This might be leading to his problems. But no, I think he's like that because he's obviously feeling like he's close. He's getting excited about being in contention again, and because he hasn't quite got it yet, I think that's why he is performing the way he's performing and acting the way he's performing, right? And I think that's a good thing. I think of course you don't want someone to completely lose their head down the stretch, right? But I do want someone that shows that they care, that's got a little bit of fight in them, and that is ultimately reacting in that way because they think they can win. And that's what Houghton Lee is showing. And as you said, the third place finish on his debut here in the Ras Al Khaimah Championship, because there was the Championship and then the Classic right back to back. So he finished there with a final round 63 to finish third. And bearing in mind he started that week with an opening round of 74 and finished third is pretty miraculous. So he went from 100th to third. And then the time after that, he then finished 33rd as well. But didn't play here last year, but not too worried about that. Just worried about the fact that he's kind of hitting those approach numbers in exactly what we want to see from Houghton Lee. 10th and 5th the last 2 weeks. In strokes gained approach, and 16th and 36th in tee screen. Now, as I said, there was some wayward driving, and that's going to affect his tee screen numbers, but overall, just really solid now. And there is a massive drop in class. I don't think Houghton needs a drop in class to perform. I think he's the sort of player that just wins at any level, right? If he's ready to do it, we famously keep going back to the 36-hole lead at the PGA Championship. But inside the top 7 all week last week, always in contention really. And then inside the top 15 for the first 4 rounds, or the first 4 rounds of the year at the Dubai Invitational. I can't avoid what I can do with Hao Tong Lee, and what we've probably been guilty of in the past is not being able to get off. Like if he plays poorly this week, I'll just jump straight back off. Like I'm pretty volatile on Hao Tong Lee, but when he's playing the way he's playing, I think you have to bet him.
Agreed. And maybe some will not be willing to stomach the price after they almost hit it at a big number last week, and I get it, but I can't be denied.
It's all relative. Like I had a hard time watching him go from 1,000 to 1 down to 150 last week, and still, or 200 to 1, and still playing him right. But it's all relative. When he's 1,000 to 1 because he's missed 36 cuts in a row, whatever it was that he did. I'm exaggerating slightly there, but like when he's doing that, you have no reason to bet him. As soon as there's a reason to bet him, he's not 150 to 1 golfer anymore. So I was quite happy to go 150 to 1, 200 to 1 on him. And when he's played that well for 2 weeks in a row in deeper fields, and now he's coming to a weaker event, I'm all in on playing him at 50 to 1 still. So Hao Tong Lee at 50 to 1, absolutely fine with me.
Perfect. All right. We each have another one. I think yours is a little shorter. So why don't you go into the golfer who I think has the best hands in the world when it comes to short game?
Yeah, Pablo Larrazábal is a player. I've always been pretty comfortable betting Larrazábal. He's someone that I'm pretty happy betting a lot of the time. I think the number's always relatively long to the history of Larrazábal. He's a multiple winner on tour and someone that's won really impressively in the past. Finished the year with a couple of top 20s in his last 5 starts to close out the year. One of those was at the Qatar Masters, which is great. He was 16th there. Finishes 20th at the Dubai Invitational to start the season, but weekend rounds of 68 and 67 really improved after a slow start. And then last week, similar situation. He opened 73-69, wasn't really in the mix, and then shoots a 70-66 over a weekend where it was tougher to score. I think Rory referenced it that he thought 67-67 was good enough for him to win. So for Larrazábal, shoots 70-66 and finishing 4th place in the manner that he did it, as excited as he got down the back 9, really impresses me. And then you go back and look at how he's played well here. He finished 3rd on his debut. He was 2nd going into the final round, finished 3rd. And then he was 56th here last time, but he was 11th after round 1, 23rd after round 2. So mixed bag, like it always is with Larrazábal. Like he's playing 2 or 3 good rounds at the moment and not 4. And his course form here is 1 really good finish and 1 middling finish. But at 45, 50 to 1, whatever it is that you can get about him now, in this quality of field, I think he's good value.
Yep. I mean, he is fun to, I would say, trust. Like it is a trust factor with him, that trust and odds. I mean, we're getting him off of victories in these type of numbers, like he's just somebody who is, the boards don't respect him, but like, man, he has the pedigree and wins to it. I did think at one point he was going to win a major championship last year. Unfortunately, that didn't come true, but big fan of Pablo.
The thing is about that, right? Like I understand. It's funny to look back now and think, why are we betting Larrazábal majors? But the thing is, the guy is a serial winner, really, on the DP World Tour. There's no real way of denying that. I know he's been around for a long time. He's 40 years old. It's not exactly like he's a youngster, but he's a 9-time DP World Tour winner. It's not someone that, like a Marcel Siem is really, really popular and people don't really question betting him, and he's won 4 or 5 times, whatever it is that he's done. But that was over a big, long period. 15 years, 9 wins. That's a really impressive return. And it's not like some of these Spanish players that he's just won in Spain and that's it. He's won in the Middle East. He's won in Germany a couple of times. He's won in France. He's won in Korea. He's won, everywhere. Holland. Like he's been around. He's lost in a playoff as well. So he could have had 10 wins. For me, he's a really impressive player that doesn't get a lot of credit for the player that he is.
Yeah, I can absolutely echo your thoughts. Now, I went with another Spaniard in this range. I thought we had a conversation last week, Tom.
We did.
You said you were going to be, gearing up Alejandro for last week. We're betting him this week. He shows a little life. Was it the Sunday 102 that he shot that put you off? Or, I mean, that was you talk about disappointing. I'm always one of those guys when you wake up in the morning, you scroll to the bottom of the leaderboard and then you work your way up. Now, if you use the DP World Tour app, it's hasn't let you star favorite players in 18 months now. It literally doesn't let you star your favorite players. If you're a flash score person, I get it. You can see it a little bit quicker, but I like the app. So you go in there and you expect to wait to see somebody's name, and then you're slapped in the face with Alejandro Del Rey at +6 through 8 holes near the bottom of the leaderboard after I thought we were placing on Sunday. That was bad.
Yeah, I don't know what to do. Like, there's one space on my card, and this might still be it, right? Like, I might still do it because he was like, I'm really happy with the process of picking that player last week. Like, he did everything that I kind of expected. Actually, what he didn't do really was drive it as well as I potentially thought he would do. Sky, I messaged you during the week and sort of said, you know, he was hitting the ball quite well from an approach standpoint and wasn't really hitting it off the tee in the way that I would expect. So I guess in that respect, you can look at it and go, well, maybe there's still room to improve. Now, he improved on that in the final round. I think he was actually 8th off the tee, which is strange considering he shot as bad as he did. I don't know, Sky, whether that's like a player like Del Rey who's impatient, like he just wants to go out and win. So if he's in 10th place, he's going to try his absolute best to go and shoot 61, 62 on a golf course that doesn't allow that bit of naivety, or whether it was just harder, it was windier, whatever it was. So I think I'm willing to give him another chance. It was just that big drop from the price, I guess. But as we just spoke about with Houghton Lee, if someone's shown a reason why, and he was 28th last year, and yeah, like I think there's good reason to back him.
Yeah, and I mean, we were, in parallel last week, 5th, 7th, leading in his two events to close out the year, 27th, 17th, 25th, and 3 of the 4 events previous to that. His official number was 10th going into the final round if he opened 72-68. So had a really strong Saturday to run up the board. I don't know. It's picture perfect for what I'd be looking at for us building out this event. Life before, without necessarily making a ton of flash and being the 28th that Xander Lombard is, but we know his game. He's probably the longest guy in the entire field. We know his college pedigree at Arizona State. He's won the Challenge Tour. It ticks every mark for me. He was an automatic bet. 50-1 isn't the best, but I would rather, I'm not betting Nick Bockham this week because he's shown nothing. And we always go back, and maybe because in parallel we hit that win, right? We had that awesome Nick Bockham hit last year. A lot of people were on, and it just made sense of exactly this formula at a course we know is going to fit well. I'm not on Nick this week because he's shown relatively not as much life since he closed out the year in the last kind of swing events, where Alejandro has, and I'll take the price cut in half compared to Bockham this week. So I'll take 50s on Alejandro.
Yeah, it's tough. I don't know. It's because I know it's probably his best last chance of the season already, which is wild considering it's obviously his form can improve, but in terms of actual just course fit and based on what he's done over the last sort of 2023 and the start of 2024, it kind of feels like his best chance to get a win this season. We'll come back to that on my part, but obviously you're fully in on Alejandro Del Rey at 50-1, and I'll kind of decide as we go along.
Yep. Okay, so I go to triple digits next. Tom, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody between 50 and 100 that you think's intriguing to quick touch on? Last week, again, I apologized off air. I cut off Tom harshly last week before his picks because I wanted us to speak on a few extra golfers. Tom, you have my full permission to make sure you can, pay me back in that manner to stop me in my tracks whenever I'm off the course. So you were just doing what I exactly had asked you to. So I apologize again. And if there's anybody here in this range that you'd like to speak on, your floor.
So I think there's a couple. Julian Gourier's got an intriguing record at this golf course. I think he's someone that was interesting. But he's only 50-1 in one place, and he's generally speaking 35. So I think that's far too low. Bernd Wiesberger's back again, so I'm always going to be intrigued at how he does. Is Laurie Cantor going to come and do what he couldn't do for me last week? Probably. So those guys are there in between that number. In terms of kind of between the 50 and 100-1 mark, I think it's Wiesberger is the one to look at. I think this is a player that we know has got an awful lot of quality. Louis Diego should love the course setup, so should Nicholas Norgard-Moller. And Frederick Lacroix had a really good end of 2023, but there wasn't a whole lot, really, actually, that my concentration of all my picks from now and the shortlist was all 100s one and bigger.
Yeah, it does look like my selection is freshly cut. And I'm happy to still go in at the new number. I can talk to him next. But yeah, Norgard-Moller is, if you look at fits, he could probably challenge Del Rey as the longest guy. Heli Kielda, I feel like, has gone a little bit under the radar from what we used to bet him at these type of events. He has a good finish here.
I thought that earlier. Like, is he kind of out of sight, out of mind, and we should be giving him a little bit of attention? But there's not a whole lot to suggest that we should. Like, he's had a couple of decent rounds, and it's not enough to get excited. The ball striking is not sort of sticking up or anything like that. So I'm not too concerned about that one.
I feel like there's been some pretty drastic cuts. And did he play here? 42nd. I guess the discovery range, if I'm thinking of somebody else, like the 50s, he's 50 now here in the States. Dan Bradbury went from like being what he would almost be if he had a couple like decent weeks, like maybe a top 10 and like a 20, he would have been among like some of the favorites. You see what like Thriston, like we were betting him. What did we bet Bradbury in South Africa?
3,
probably in the, honestly, I might have bet him in like the 25 range, you know?
Yeah.
So it feels pretty good at a course where, he's not short. He can,
long enough.
His putter was terrible last week. He's going to have to score. So I'm okay probably passing, but he's getting into that range. If we see a little bit of life again, 50s is pretty nice for Bradbury here. Guido has played well back-to-back weeks, 13th, 25th. Been terrible at this course. But Guido radar is starting to go off a little bit. I can feel it.
Jeff Windsor.
And I wanted to bet him at that first event of the year. Pretty bad. And he shot $1 million on Saturday.
Yeah, 12th at the Challenge Tour here, and then he was okay for a couple of rounds the first time they played on the DP World Tour. To me, he's someone that's actually really impressed, but it's the finish last week that kind of puts me off. And the 78 at the Dubai Invitational suggests it's not all there. So I'm not too worried about someone that it's not like he's a perennial winner. But yeah, worth mentioning, I guess.
Yep. So I guess I'll just go right into my next pick. And we kind of tipped a little bit last week of what we're looking at for this week. And it's early, right? We don't really have all of the profiles like I would love to have for the Challenge Tour guys. Like, I'm doing the best that I really can with research. I'm trying, literally this is what I'm doing, Tom. I'm typing in guys' names, and then I'm typing in distance or like driving or swing. I even watched some swing videos this week to see, do I think based off of that swing, this guy is like in the upper echelon of distance? I would kill for like I would love to have that ability. Like even the Corn Ferry stats for the Challenge Tour, driving distance on 2 holes. Like, it can help us so much with these guys. But one of them that I'm very confident from the eye test, watching and early strokes gain stuff is Jesper Svensson is very long. He's got good irons. He already, we almost took him to the window at the South African Open. He arguably should have won that event when Dean came in there. He was the first round leader, I believe, 36 hole. He was right there. Last week, 31st, Hero Dubai, strong off the tee, strong approach. Just enough on the radar that I think he's getting cut because he's getting tipped that people are definitely in on him. But Svensson is somebody that totally seems to fit the bill and what this course demands, and there's just not enough known from him to make him lower odds than this. So AVs is where he is, and I'm cool with that. Yeah,
Svensson, I think for me, he was one of the final ones kind of off my short list. The stats that I've got is that he averaged 328 yards in round 1, 315 in round 2, which is 5th and 17th respectively. And then he was really short off the tee on Sunday, like 285. But overall, he was kind of 16th in the field in terms of distance, which sounds about right when you've kind of got Rory and Cameron Young and Nikolai and Del Rey and everyone else in the field. So I think he's strong enough. And I think, look, we talked about Svensson already at length in the preview show and things like that. I think he's still good value. I think this is a player that's got something about him. I think 31st in a field that he played in last week when he's never seen the golf course was impressive. So, yeah, I think there's every reason to go back to someone like a Svensson, especially at a course and an event where I think anyone can kind of win.
Yeah, totally agree. He winner last year on the Challenge Tour in his first event of the year. Closed with a second, 13th, 11th, and 4 of his last 5 events. Just had a really strong Challenge Tour year. 27 years old, so has played a good amount of professional golf. Yeah, I feel confident in Svensson here. Let's go with your duo next, Tom.
Yes, the first one I thought was going to be a little bit shorter than this based on just how much attention he was getting on the coverage yesterday. They kept going back to him because he was playing quite well over the weekend. He had a good second round. He shot 63, and then he was kind of flashing stuff. But Masahiro Kawamura finished 7th last week, and I think I actually spoke about this guy. Didn't we talk about players that were like in the 500-1 range, and we sort of said, I think I threw away his name and Manacero. And look, that wasn't me suggesting that I thought he could win. Like, I absolutely didn't. But it was kind of a look ahead to this week because he's coming back to a golf course where he finished 27th and 6th at in his 2 starts here. I was really impressed with the 100-1 that you can still get back Kawamura, considering the field that he just finished 7th in. Open with 75, bounces straight back with 63 last week, 72, 69 weekend in tough scoring conditions. It's not like he completely fell away after that 63, which so often people do. And yeah, the most recent evidence we've got about Kawamura is that he finished 6th here. And it's right up the street of someone like Kawamura who loves to go low, can string a lot of birdies together. I think he's that kind of first round leader type candidate as well. He loves to get off to a fast start at times. 15th in strokes gained approach, 10th in strokes gained tee screen Kawamura. I'm pretty comfortable with 100-1 about him. So Masahiro Kawamura is the first of the duo. The second,
remember, he did really well in the qualifying school. He was trying to get his Korn Ferry Tour card, got all the way to final stage after he got through first and second. So definitely intrigued.
And I think about, wasn't it when Shinkwin won that he had the chance to win? A couple of players going for their kind of first wins, and that was, a really low scoring event. So for me, Kawamura is someone that kind of sticks in my mind at these types of events. And then the second one, who I can't believe I had to scroll down to triple digits to find. And I think it's definitely a case of out of sight, out of mind, really, for someone. But we were really high on Johannes Veerman for a good period of time, and rightly so, right? Like, I think he was a strong talent that came over, played well quickly, kind of in the similar sort of bracket to Sean Crocker in our eyes of favourites and the type of player that he is. Finished the year, he struggled a little bit, but he finished here 38th at the South African Open. He was 18th after 54 holes. And then 39th for the Alfred Dunhill, where he was 7th after 54 holes. And then he comes right back to start the year with a 16th place finish at the Dubai Desert Classic last week. Now, never in contention, 27th after round 1, lower than that for two and 3 rounds. But he's come back to a golf course where he's played really well. Like 12th on his debut, he was 5th after 54 holes, 3rd after round 1, and then 19th last year, where he's never outside the top 20. For the talent that we know of Johannes Veerman is, the fact that we know he's capable of getting himself into contention and really, threatening to win. I see no reason why Veerman, who's won the Czech Masters, and he has to hit the ball pretty long there, beat Crocker, as we kind of mentioned there, to do that. Yeah, I think Veerman's overpriced in triple digits. I know it's been a couple of years since that win, but I'm pretty confident that he's a decent value over at 100-1.
Yeah, he popped on my radar a little bit last week too, just going into the event after, like you mentioned, close the year okay, really good tee to green overall. Yeah, I mean, what was that, top 20 at the Barracuda in the summer there too? Yeah, I mean, we've thought very highly of Veerman for a substantial amount of time. So I'm hoping we start to see that golf, because he was somebody, and maybe it is just you tie the American to being able to play well, as you get back stateside and into PGA Tour. But man, he was on the trajectory that you would have expected to be there by now and making headway. So hopefully you're catching it right for him.
Yeah, and he was 8th, 19th in the last year when he was in these two events. 8th at the Dividers Classic, 19th in this. If he can go kind of 16th and 5th, I don't think that's out of the realm of possibilities. Like, it's obviously a time of year and a type of event that he likes and part of the world that he likes. So quite comfortable to finish off my card with Johannes Veerman.
Yep, absolutely. All right, I'm scrolling for a bit for mine here, Tom. No surprise. Now, again, we can filter through kind of some quick one-offs on guys that we like, but again, trying to fit the bill for somebody who we have very little information on, shown some life in these early events for him. And the one that I came across, 250. Now he's been around professional golf for a lot longer, 31 years old, but Hugo Cusad is somebody who seemingly runs up the driving distance leaderboards quite frequently. Now, again, 2017 was when he was kind of ripping up the Alps Tour, made his way, and basically was a long-time journeyman on the Challenge Tour. Like, he played the Challenge Tour for 6 years, pretty much. And last year was kind of his run to glory as he started off his year 2nd, 6th, 13th, 20th, 21st, win 15th, 2nd, and basically had it, wrapped up for his card to come up. He popped up to the DP World Tour, made cuts at the Soudal Open and the Porsche European Open. If I'm not mistaken, two courses that we do look at times for distance type of players, right? McKibben wins at one, who's popular this week. Forsstrom won at the other. But Ringfin isn't as much. Porsche European Open would be the one. So the McKibben one, where he was 65th at, and what we've seen now in 24 for him is miscut, 38th, 15th, and then 70th. So nothing to write home all about, but enough for me to have a profile and a speculation on somebody with a little bit of life. I mean, if we digged into kind of his driving distance rankings, last week he was 12th. For him, I think earlier in the year he was inside the top 15 in another one. When we see him, I mean, he is somebody overall that I have no doubt is probably a top 10 distance guy in this field. And 3 made cuts for him is saying something at these odds. So I think I can confidently go in on Cusad this week for somebody who has basically played the best golf of his professional career in a decade.
Yeah, and I just think anytime you're getting a player like this that is on the rise is the time to play them, right? Like, we don't know whether Cusad is peaked and that's it, and he's going to play 1 year and be done again, sort of thing. But we've seen with players like Nathan Kimsey, who's kind of a similar profile, that did nothing when he first got onto the DP World Tour, was spent a lot of time on Challenge Tour, and all of a sudden he was challenging for PGA Tour titles, and that's PGA Tour by name only, I guess, in the sense that it's probably more of a DP World Tour level field, but it still means the same. They're still going to be playing for PGA Tour cards, still the same sort of pressures. That's not what they're going to face this week. So I think it's a great time to play with someone like Hugo Cusad. Do you think there's something there? A couple of names I will mention before we come into your final pick. Ross Fisher, really close for me. If he wins,
always you love Ross.
I don't know what's going to happen if he wins. I might not be here next week. Callum Shinkwin, another one. I think is we think about him as someone that can drive the ball pretty well, take advantage of the scoring here. And then the other one player that I'll mention that wasn't on my radar until I was just looking while you were talking about Hugo there was, what about Brandon Stone? Wasn't he showing a bit of life like towards the end of last season? I think he finished 11th in the Challenge Tour final, played okay in the final event of the year. I think in Mauritius he was top 15 after a couple of rounds, and he's played well here in the past. A couple of top 20, top 25 finishes for Brandon Stone. Big power guy at his best. So I think Brandon Stone is someone worth keeping an eye on, but not enough to kind of put him up as a pick.
Yeah, definitely. I actually saw him tipped, I believe, this morning by somebody too. And I think it was just interesting enough. The only thing I left out on Ugo was kind of a fast starter. He was 12th after first round last week. The week before that, he was 10th. Week before that, 16th. So, again, couple pops in rounds, enough for me to be willing to go in there. And there's a few weeks that I had to go off without being able to talk about him on the air. But the golfer who we were as high on as anybody graduating from Q School or the Challenge Tour was Sam Jones. Now, Sam Jones is 500 to 1. I really thought there was multiple opportunities that we were looking at Sam Jones being like that instant flash onto the DP World Tour. He was 6th after 54 holes at the Australian Open, 7th after 36, shot a 78 on Sunday, was long odds again the next week where he was 4th after the first round, finished 25th, sandwiched a couple miscuts around then. He was recently on Craig Thompson's podcast, our friend there, and kind of talked about his overall game. And when kind of asking Craig a little bit more on him, Craig Thompson, he said that, he really, and I saw this even in an Instagram video, that he was 180 plus ball speed, looking like he was built around some distance. It has to maybe even tone it back a little bit to play when the fairways are required. But driving distance for him was a huge thing that was important. So Sam Jones 500 to 1 this week. If we know enough about him popping, he flew through Q School as an amateur, a mid-am. So I think there's a lot. Sam Jones 500 to 1 with the each ways here. I'll probably get a top 10 with that too. But I'm not quitting yet on Sam Jones either.
Good time of the season not to quit on people. And I think that an event that just absolutely plays into players like him, like if that is completely true, that he is a bigger hitter than we kind of seen so far because he has to dial it back, then that's only good news, right, for him. So I think it's a perfect event to see him back. Do you know, I mentioned at the start of the show that Jonas Blixt went out and contended a major. I didn't realize he was playing this week.
So he got, when Rahm went to live, Blixt went from 201 to 200. And so now he fits into this category. Which is up there. I mean,
he shot 83.75 at a Great Exuma Classic last week, so I don't suppose we're expecting too much from him this week, and we haven't done for a long time. But wouldn't it be cool if Jonas Blixt came over and played well in Europe? That'd be exciting. Nothing else to add other than a bit of nostalgia factor there, and the fact that I completely mentioned him with no relevance to the fact that he was actually in the field this week. Filippo Celle's back.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Saw that.
Valiant is someone that I think we'll kind of keep an eye on throughout the season. But look, I'm just naming names here. There's not really. Freddie Scott is someone that people have been talking about. John Wonko hits it a decent way. There's names, right? Dylan Fratelli would never have been 250 to 1 on the DP World Tour field 2 or 3 years ago. So there's a bunch of names down here that would be interesting if you just want to take a flyer. I'm not, because I'm just kind of focusing on that mid-range. Through all of this, Guy, through the final picks, I am going to stick with what we said last week. I am going to go with Alejandro Del Rey and make him back-to-back selections. So I would just really struggle to see him win after being so happy with the process through 54 holes last week of picking him. It makes perfect sense that he'd come back and play well again this week. And, lower pressure, ease. If anything, like, it's just going to be so much easier, right? Like, it's going to be so much easier off the tee. There's going to be no stress. He's not going to doubt himself and things like that. So I'm going to join you on Alejandro Del Rey, which means that there's no room for anyone else on my card.
All right. Totally fair. The only guys, I got like 6 I want to rip off quick. You mentioned Jonas Blixt. Sung Kang is also in the field playing on that exemption 2. While I used to think Kang was like a bomber when he was in the Genghis gang and he was getting a lot of distance, but it doesn't seem to be relevant anymore. I think you could always do worse than blindly betting Casey Jarvis when he gets to these numbers. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not there, but he's somebody that I feel like you could just click on every single week and be happy with. But the one that I really want to talk about is that exemption category that now these guys got into the field, thankfully. So Nakajima, you mentioned earlier, being the one who's priced at 40 to 1. Micheluzzi is triple digits. He comes off a 5th at the Australian event that he played in last. Prakush, let me make sure I have it here. Prakush Chauhan, win 10th in 3 of his last 5 events. He won the PGA Tour of India Challenge Tour combo event, so he immediately got elevated to Challenge Tour status. And he was the PGA Tour of India's Order of Merit leader. So again, somebody who really hasn't gotten the shots on this stage, 37 years old, for him to be there, had a really strong year. Guxin Chen, 20 years old, 1,000 to 1 this week. If you search him on Twitter, all you're going to find is him being littered on betting cards of guys over the last three years or so at long odds, or even I saw him at short odds, 10 to 1, getting tipped in the China Tour event. He was professional, I believe, at 17, winning on the China Tour, just competing. He almost won. Where was he last year? He just has that pedigree of strong amateur career, jumped quickly to the professional ranks, won, kind of early last year. Yeah, China Tour, Asian Tour, finished second at the Volvo China Open. I don't know if he's going to be somebody that we get at 1,000 to 1 that many times. He won twice on the Asian Development Tour in 2022, twice on the China Tour 2021. So I just find that interesting when you start to get, especially at his age. I think that's everybody for me. The only other guys in that category, Jocko Prinsloo is getting starts to there. But no, I'm happy to close out, Tom. If you want to give us your betting card in a second here, I'm going to make sure we give a shout out to our audio listeners. You can find us on Daily Fantasy Sports Picks and Bets, The Mix, available on all Mayo Media Network platforms. Appreciate your guys' support. Rate, review, subscribe, leave comments. Love seeing the comments on YouTube. We really appreciate all the love that you guys give us. So, Tom, you can go ahead and close us out here with your betting card.
Yeah, so for me, it's Pablo Larrazábal at 45 to 1. I am now joining you on Alejandro Del Rey at 50 to 1 to make sure I don't miss out when he wins. Haotong Lee at 50 to 1. Masahiro Karamura at 100 to 1. And Johannes Veerman at 110 to 1. Really surprised that duo, that those last two duos are 100 to 1 and bigger.
Yeah, and there's still 80s with each ways here in the States, too, which is pretty nice. So I'll be on, like we said, Alejandro Del Rey is 50 to 1 with each way here. Haotong Lee, we'd love a little 1-2, exacta for those guys being on together. That would be a great way to go this week. Jesper Svensson, 80 to 1. Ugo Kusa, 250 to 1. Sam Jones, 500 to 1. Those last two, I'm somebody who likes the first round leader on a long dart on your card. If either of those two, if we get a wave split or go off early, don't be surprised to see a first round leader tacked on there. But that does it for this week. So Ras Al Khaimah Championship coming up. Excited for this one because it's kind of our first event of the year, Tom, that we get not a strong field. This is where we excel. We love it in this range.
I'm surprised that there's as much value as there is in this field. Like I actually thought we were going to be really struggling with putting up guys at 20, 25 to 1 and being really unhappy about it, but having to do it because there was no one else. But we're living in that kind of 45, 50 to 1 range, and I feel really comfortable about it. So between Haotong, Alejandro Del Rey, and Larrazábal, I think we've got some really strong picks in there. And I just can't believe some of the 100 to 1 shots we've been able to get. So really happy about this week, actually. I think it's good value. Torrey Pines is a slightly different prospect altogether. So really happy that we've got at least a good betting event over here on the DPR Tour.
Yeah, it's time for the deep odds guys to come to the DP World Tour. We have all these long shots on the PGA Tour. Let's bring it overseas and let's hit a big winner for us. So thanks again, everyone, and we will catch you next week. Take care.